Alright, so I think in the end of the last video, um, we finished off pressing those buttons and opening the transaction screens. So there's a little more we need to do with that. So first off, we need to get the goal ID into that transaction user control so we can associate the transaction with that goal. So what we're going to do for that is we're going to create a new property in our view model, in our main page view model. Actually, first, let me show you guys a couple of the changes I have made. So, here, so also for this goal control, I also made it bind to a property just like I did for the transaction control for visibility purposes, and it's using the same converter. So let's look at that really quick again. So this is the converter that we're using. As you remember, we check if it's a Boolean type. If it's true, return visible. If it's not, then control collapse. Then return collapsed. I can't remember if I spoke about the commands last time, so I'll show those really quick as well. Two properties named button command. So we go into the button command class. We always return true because we want the button to be always active or enabled. We pass in the action, we set the method to the action, and then we fire that method when the execute gets called, which is when the button gets clicked. I'll show you the XAML for that one more time. So we got one here. Oh yes, we also did these ones up here, the add and decrease button. Actually, I probably showed you that already because that's where we ended off in the last video. Okay, so back to what I was starting with. We're going to add a goal ID property to our main page view model. So we'll put it, actually I'll keep this with the rest of them. So private int goal ID. And then we got the public version of it that we are going to bind to. Get return goal ID. Set goal ID equals value. Call that good old notify property changed. Goal ID. Cool. So now we have this goal ID. And let's make sure that we bind to it. Alright, so before we do that, we're going to bind that goal ID to this add transaction control. So let's open that up too. Here we are. What we're going to need here is something to hold the goal ID. So we're going to do a public integer goal ID. We'll leave it like this for a second. Actually, let's put our get and sets there so it won't complain. But to be able to data bind to this, we need to set up a dependency property. So we'll do private read only dependency property. We'll call this the goal ID property equals dependency property dot register. So we'll register this up. We're going to pass in the name of the property, which is goal ID, the type of property, so that's what it's accepting, or what the type of the property is, which is an integer. The owner is this control. So we're going to do type of add transaction control. And we're going to pass in null for this type metadata because I don't know what the hell that even does. So in order to make this binding thing work, for the getter, we're going to do the get value method. And as you see here, crap, let me bring that back up. Get value. You already see that it takes a dependency property. So we will do return int. We'll cast our dependency property to get value. Pass in our property goal ID property. Looks good. For here we'll do our set. So since they have a get value, they also have a set value. Set value, pass in our dependency property, goal ID property, and then we'll just pass in value, which is the value that gets passed in when we set the goal ID. So this is awesome because not only can we data bind and set this, but we can also get that property value back, which we'll use down here. And the whole point of this goal IDs, right, is to associate a transaction with a goal. So we'll do new transaction dot goal ID equals goal ID. Right? Great. So let's save that. Now, back to the XAML because we did not data bind that goal ID yet. So since the goal ID is a public property of this transaction control, we can actually call it in here. See, goal ID. We're going to do binding and then goal ID. So this name should match what's in our view model right here. Alright, that looks good. So we're going to run this and we're going to see that there's something else that we need to do to get this whole thing wired up and working perfectly. And what do I need? I need to, I already have this control open. We'll put a breakpoint right here. So I'm going to show you why we need to do this next step. So we click add, we enter 10, we hit confirm, we look at the goal ID. Oh no, the goal ID is 0. But what happened? We set up the dependency properties and all that, and we data bind it to the goal ID. So what we need to do, actually let me leave this breakpoint here, is in the main view model. So if we look at this main page, right, we know that these buttons, they're sent to our command, well, it's binded to the command, but we need a way to get what the current goal is that's data binded to everything in this list item. Luckily, there is a nice way to do that, and it's called, oops, don't do it inside there, command property, parameter, excuse me. And all we're going to do is say binding. And this is basically just going to take whatever this list item is binded to and pass it through as a property. Alright, so this will essentially just send whatever goal that we need to through to our main page view model. Actually, not the main page view model, it's going to send it to our button command. So you see these parameter options right here. If you don't pass in a command parameter, they'll be null, but since we are sending a parameter, we can now use that. So let's do that. So in order to do that, we'll change this to object, and then pass in parameter for the execute, right? So we're going to click that confirm button, it's going to send here to the execute. It's going to run this execute method. Inside the parameter is going to be the goal that we clicked add on. We're going to pass that goal to our action, which, if you remember, is the method that we passed in to bind to the button command. So in our main page view model, you'll see that it's already complaining like, hey, we need a parameter. So we'll add these object parameters here so it won't complain anymore. So in this transaction control visibility, we're going to do parameter as goal, and then we're going to set this goal ID equal to the goal ID of the parameter. Goal ID equals goal.parameter. Oops, goal ID. So when we set this, it's going to fire that wonderful notify property changed, which is in turn going to go back to the XAML, and since we bind it to the, where are we? Yeah, since we bind it to the goal ID here, the goal ID in our main page view model will now have a value. So let's run this again and check it out. Let's make sure I got this breakpoint here. So let's press add. Let's do 10. Confirm it. We hit the breakpoint. Voila, we now have our goal ID here, 5. So let's actually skip over that save because we don't really care about it right now. And let's try to open this back up again. Oh no, it's not opening back up. We have a problem. Well, the problem is when we clicked add the first time, it sets our show transaction control to true, right? And here in the hide controls, we set the visibility back to collapsed, but there's a disconnect. When we set it back to collapsed, the converter never turned this collapse back into a false to put into our show transaction control. So this is still always true. Remember, it never turned false, so the visibility that we binded to earlier does not collapse this add transaction control. So to make that whole thing flow back and forth, what we need to do is first make this mode two-way. So now it's two-way binding. So like when we click to confirm, it closes it. That will now send that. It will go into the converter, send that collapse, turn it into false, and store it in the main page view model. And at the same time, when we click the add button, it turns it to true. The true turns into visibility equals visible, and it shows the transaction control. So let's see this in action because I explained that like a total dick. So what do we need to make this two-way? Let's go into our converter. Now you see that we don't have this implemented right now. So what we need to do is say, now remember, up here turned bool into visible. We need to turn visibility back into bool. So if value is visibility, then Yahoo, we're good to go. Var visibility state equals visibility value. We'll cast that. Then we'll say if visibility state equals, if it equals visible, then we're going to return true. else return false. And then once again, if it's not even visible, or if it's not a visibility object, then, or enum I should say, then we're just going to return false. So we'll put a breakpoint here. Let's run this and see if we got everything that we need. So, right, once the project starts up, we know that this is going to be false because both of those controls are set to be false, which means that they are not visible. That should hit twice, right? Because it's twice because it's once for each user control. So we will click the add button now. This should be true now, right? Okay, cool. So like we've seen before, this changes it to visible. So now we see our user control. We enter in an amount, 100 for example, press confirm. Stop here, let's jump over this. So right here, remember, clear fields is fine. We hide control. When we set this visibility collapse, we now need it to be translated into false. And this is why we got the two-way binding now. So bam, now it hits the convert back. It's like, I don't know what to do with this. So bam, we get the visibility. Is it visible? No. So it's going to go to the else, set it back to false. And now, this is good to go again. So now we should be able to press add again and have this fire open up our user control. Bam, here we go. That's right, new value is true. Open. So you see that now? We can keep opening and closing it if we wanted to. Is there anything else on this that I need to do? Let's see. Where's at the end of part 2? That rhymes, so it must be true. Nope, that looks all... Actually, no. Actually, let me see how much time I have left. Okay, so let's get this working. So what we're going to do is create a way to update the balance in the goal. So when we submit that new transaction, we just want to add it to the current balance of that goal. And then from there, we're going to want to refresh the progress bar on the main page to reflect the new addition of the balance for that goal. So we are going to start off. First of all, let's collapse these. Let's start off in the user control. We're going to create this event for us. Yeah, looks like I already created it. So make sure you get this, guys. Make sure you guys get this down. You're going to create a new public event handler called transaction save finish. Create a private method to fire it. And then we were just going to fire it right after the save happens. Right? So after save happens and we come back, then we're going to fire this event. So let's go hook that up on the main page. We'll do it in here when we first create. So let's do damn it, what's the control called again? Transaction control dot transaction save, blah, 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 I can't even speak. So we hook up that event handler and we're going to do basically the same thing. that we did in the on goal saved, which is really just set the item source over again. Cool. So what that's gonna do is once we finish that save, we're gonna set the item source over again. It's gonna call our goal to repopulate that list view, and then it's gonna have all that new transaction stuff in it. So the balance will be higher, and it will push the progress bar higher and higher the more that we add more money to it. So let's see, what do we need to do now? Right, we need to make that part that's gonna add on the new amount to the balance of the goal. So we'll head to our data context helper. And we'll create a new method. We'll do public void async task. Async task get, oh no, let's do add balance. We're doing async task so we can run this asynchronously. We don't want to block that main thread. We don't want to freeze up the program when this is doing this calculation, because it could be a lot of calculations that will be done. So we're also gonna do task.factory start new. This takes an action. Green because we didn't await it. Now in here we can do all our fancy schmancy stuff. So we'll do decimal. Actually, we don't even need to do that, right? What do we need? We need to pass in a goal ID. Goal ID and decimal amount to add. Right, so we're gonna do using var db equals goal data context. What are we gonna do in here? Let's get the goal, because that's what we really need to do. Var goal equals db dot goals. Spelled that completely wrong. Turn it to a to list so we can do a actually, yeah, let's make this goals. So we're gonna do the to list async. Because just imagine if we were to have like a application that had a bunch of goals in it, it probably might take a while to turn that DB set into a list. Oops, I forgot to make this async. Cool. So now we have our list of goals. We will get our goal now. Dot first or default. Oops. Goals dot first or default. Where x dot goal ID equals goal ID, the parameter that we passed in. I wonder if we should just use single or default, since only one item can have that ID. Cool. So now we have our goal, and we're just gonna simply do goal dot balance plus equals amount to add. Then we're just gonna do db dot save changes async. Call await on that so it's asynchronous. Cool. So that looks good. So what are you complaining about now? Right, actually we don't even want this public. We want this private. Make sure you put your static or else will complain. So I did the singular default. I turned it to a list because before, when I was trying to do like first default, singular default, it was throwing an invalid operation exception when I did it straight to the DB list. So I turned it to a list first, and then I did a singular default, and it seemed to work fine. So that's good. All right. So after we do this wonderful save here, we're gonna only do this if the type is a transaction, right? We don't care about if it's a goal to append on the balance or whatever. So we're going to do if type of t equals type of transaction, then we will do that method that we just made, which is add balance. We're gonna pass in new record so we're gonna have to do var record, let's say transaction equals new record as transaction. We can safely do this knowing that it won't crash because I make sure that it is a type of transaction first. So transaction dot goal ID and transaction dot amount. Looking at this though, I might as well just pass in the entire object. So let's do that, and I'll handle all this stuff inside of the method. So let's go down here and change this. Transaction new, well, we'll call it the saved transaction, right? Okay, then we're simply gonna do saved transaction dot goal ID and saved transaction dot amount. Cool, looks cooler. We kept this up here cleaner, so that's always good. So after the transaction gets saved, it's going to say, hey, is this a transaction? Yes, it is. We're going to turn this into a transaction object, pass it into the add balance. Then we're going to bust into this method. We're going to start a new task, await it, so we can do all of this asynchronously. We're going to turn it into a list, get the goal based on the goal ID. Then the goal balance, we're going to plus equal it to whatever the new transaction amount is. So if I had 10 before and I came in here and I just submitted a transaction for $5, then this will add it up, give me 15, and then we just call save changes async. So let's see if we can get this to display all properly. And I'll put a breakpoint in here too so we can watch as it goes through. Alright, so let's start on this one since this one already has stuff in it. So right now we see that the progress bar is blank. Let's go in here. Let's add like $10, right? We'll press the confirm button. Bam. So we're busting here. Let's look at our saved transaction. So it has that $10 amount and a goal associated to it. So we'll do this, get the list. Bam, we'll get the goal. Okay, so we do have the right goal. The The balance is 0 right now. The savings goal is $122. That should now turn the balance to 10, right? Because that is the amount that we just saved. And we'll save it. This should in turn run. So we'll be right here when this finishes. Or we won't be right here when it finishes. What's going on with this? Did this ever fire? We are about to find out. Let's go and add another $10 and debug this. Confirm. Okay, so it is firing this transaction. It's good to go. Yeah, let's look at our list items. We'll look at number 6. The balance is 10. So it stepped over that. Okay, so now our value is showing. That was interesting. It didn't do it on the first time though. Let's go to this property here. This does get the goals table. Okay, let's start a new goal. So, new goal. The saving amount is going to be $100. Alright, let's save it. Cool, we have our new goal here. Let's add an amount. It's only $100, so let's add $50 the first time. So I expect that when I click this confirm, that it's going to turn that progress bar to be half full. These events are firing. It looks good. Let's make sure our goal is in there. It is in there. His balance is 0 though. That's interesting. Oh no, that's right. All right. It was showing 0 because we broke on the method right here, so it never actually went into the getter, which then queried the new data. Right? Because remember, the first time that we add something, it has a balance of 0. Then when this is fired, it goes in, it re-gets the data from the SQLite with the new transaction in. So this is working good. So let's add another 25 to it. Now I didn't see this go up, so we do have some type of bug in here. I see this going up now. This is interesting. Alright, so let's try to see what's going on with this. Alright, so this method might be waiting, but so this part might be waiting, but I don't think this method itself is waiting. So let's make that task, and then let's await that. Make this async, because probably what's happening before is that this would fire, but since we're not awaiting it, it would continue with the rest of these methods before that data was even saved. So we had basically timing issues. So now with this, we have to wait until this is completely done, and then we continue on. So let's save all of this. Let's clear out all those extra columns as well. So give me a second and I'll do that. Well, let's clear out all the extra table records. Sorry about that, I just had to jump into this. So anyways, so what we're gonna do, just for headaches purposes, we're gonna create a delete all goals. So we can just clear this out anytime we need to. Go data context. For each var item in db.goals. Then we're gonna do db.goals. Whoa. Dot remove. Pass in the item. When this is done, db.save changes. Cool. So I'll call this right here. Cool. So let's run this. Cool, so we deleted everything. Let me just take this out really quick. So let's just do a brief overview before this video ends while this loads. We set up event handlers to fire after a save transaction finished. We then went into the data context helper and added a method that will tally up the balance of the goal that we added a new transaction to. And then finally we made that method to save the transaction into a task so we could await on it because we were having timing issues. So the newest goal, the savings amount of 5,000 of the big ones. That's what she said. And so we'll press this. We'll say I deposited 500. And now we see that, see, it's been confirmed right there. So let's add 2,000. See, now we can really see the difference, the jump from here to here. Then we'll do another 2,500. And now we're full, goal finished. Alright, so that's it for this video as well. Next time we'll mess around with this decrease button to be able to decrease this goal amount. And then we'll set up the edit button. And then after all of that, we still have to do the details page, which is just going to be fun in its own as well. So thank you for watching. Leave comments if you want, whatever. I don't care. Alright, cool. See you next video.